one of the greatest warriors in Greek mythology, victor of countless battles and almost immortal. Good morning, everyone. Achilles' greatest strength and greatest weakness were brought about at a young age. As a child, he was held by his ankle as his mother dipped him into the river Styx. Although the power of these waters was said to give him the invulnerability of gods, they never touched his heel. Although he wore the armour of blacksmith Hephaestus and had long remained undefeated, it was his unprotected heel, his unprotected weakness, that began his downfall. Struck on the heel by a poisonous arrow, Achilles died in battle. We all have an Achilles heel. We can all look back on our language and literacy journey and see points of weakness and areas of vulnerabilities. When I think about my own language and literacy journey, it brings to mind a soldier and his armour. When I consider a soldier and his armour, I think of the process of putting on the armour and the sense of protection as a result of it. Similarly, I feel that learning, especially as I entered my formal years of education, has been a conscious and effortful process. As I advanced in my learning, it gave me that sense of protection and achievement. I also consider where the soldier would be without the armour, and I'm forced to share in a sense of vulnerability that would undoubtedly arise. So to me, the putting on of armour reflects a foundational acquisition of my language and literacy journey. My strengths can further be likened to the soldier's choice in weaponry. The areas that I've excelled in or felt comfortable in are areas that I have and must use to my advantage. Finally, who a soldier represents, their position and their ranking in an army can be seen through the armour that they wear. I feel that literacy and language skills that I've acquired very much mould both how I view myself and how others view me. They're a part of my identity. My literacy and language journey hasn't really been a smooth process, but is better described as having been disrupted. I never attended preschool, so prior to going to school, I learned everything from my mum, from basic oral language to basic rules of English, such as phonics. The primary school I attended was extremely small. There were only 2 teachers between years 1 to 6. The year that I attended primary school, there was no prep class, so I started year 1 both younger and with less knowledge than my peers. Throughout the course of my primary education, I moved schools 3 times, and within those 3 moves, I repeated year 3 and then skipped year 4. This broken pattern has very much been the cause of me having gaps in my learning. Each move and each year level, I had to adjust to a new teaching style and catch up to the kids that are in the class. Whilst the gaps in my learning weren't initially a problem or initially noticeable, as I developed and advanced in English, those foundational rules that I had missed became more prominent. This disrupted pattern continued into high school, and by the end of year 12, I'd moved schools 5 times. Due to poor health, I pulled out of school my 8th grade and homeschooled through my year of recovery. Although I went back to school in year 9, I missed several days of school because of my health. This was also the time that electives were introduced to me. My strengths became very clear to me as my marks weren't really greatly affected by me missing so many days of school. I really started to explore art during these final years of school and found this to be a strength. I seemed both naturally inclined to the physical process of creating an artwork as well as the grammar of an artwork. But as I reflect on my studies in their entirety, I now see that I incorporated creativity into other subjects as well. For example, in English, I would choose creative writing over something like formal styles of writing, like essays. By the end of year 12, I had managed to bridge some gaps in my learning. However, I still find that my English grammar skills have been a particular area that I've suffered and struggled in. Having recently taken the BKSB initial assessment and then diagnostic test, I found that it wasn't just a reminder, but it was an indicator of where I currently am within this area. Through the course of my modules, I could further see both specific points of weakness where I had very little grasp of the concepts themselves, such as the use of colons and semicolons, and other areas where it was more just a reminder. I further found that whilst I used some of the English skills on a daily basis, when it came to using them consciously, I struggled. So whilst at school, I had developed social skills and an ability to read nonverbal cues. It was during my gap year that this area really had opportunity to develop. Working in a dementia ward at the beginning of my gap year, I especially learned how to read people's nonverbal communication. Often the elderly people I worked with made little sense verbally, so it was their nonverbal cues that gave more meaning. This was a very challenging part of my language development, but it was a skill in an area that I was able to develop in quickly because of the nature of my job and the constant exposure to these kind of people. Later in my gap year, my job entailed more customer service, and I was able to use these skills to navigate my way through things such as customer complaints. I further developed skills in having control more over my own nonverbal cues and how best to project a certain persona that suited different social contexts and social situations. As a result of these experiences, my nonverbal communication has become a strength or an area that I feel comfortable in. As I mentioned before, English stands out to me as an area that's most affected by my disrupted education. Whilst my other core subjects such as history and science still need attention, English holds so much weight in so many different areas. I found the BKSB not only useful to see where I am within different subjects, but it was also for tracking my improvement. I recently wrote down a SMART goal which stated that I would source, work through and complete 2 English grammar textbooks. I've since talked to a teacher and had a series of English grammar books suggested to me called Lymphonics by Evelyn Gerald. This series revises the most basic rules in a methodical process in which it slightly gets more in depth with each textbook. They're a good resource for my personal development and a good resource for me as an aspiring primary school teacher. Whilst there are questions that you can work throughout the book, I find that the BKSB layout of having pre and post tests before and after modules is really good just to track development. So my goal has changed from just working through the first 2 textbooks to completing the series, taking pre and post tests as I learn and am reminded of different concepts and rules. I plan on sourcing textbooks that focus. I also want to source textbooks that focus on testing me specifically in different areas and different subjects. As well as this, the internet is a great resource with several online tests on a range of topics at your disposal. My language and literacy journey has very much been a disrupted process, but like the soldier and his armour, my vulnerabilities can be protected and my weaknesses made strong, as I daily and consciously choose to put on my armour. Thanks.